Consciousness, the final frontier. These are the voyages into the universe between your ears. Our mission, to explore collective wisdom, seek out amazing secrets, and spread the message of personal potential.
All right, welcome everybody. This is Tim Starr, your mindset missionary, your host for tonight's episode, or today's episode, or this morning's episode, wherever you're hearing this, of the universe between your ears. My usual co-host, Gabi Mushiev, is not able to join us for this one, so he's going to miss out, but he'll just have to listen to it like everybody else. So I've been looking forward to this conversation with our guest here. His name is Chris Burns. And since growing up lost, numb, and disconnected, hitting rock bottom, and winding up in a very scary place years ago, Chris Burns has hired numerous coaches and invested well over 10,000 hours into the fields of communication, business, and leadership. Now, Chris coaches entrepreneurs and high achievers to develop a fiery, unstoppable mindset, take courageous, confident, and consistent action, and create massive impact in the world. He's spoken at 90-plus live events across the United States to rooms of more than 250 people. And in the last 10 months, Chris has interviewed over 160 inspirational role models, influencers, and leaders on his weekly 12-hour straight live stream podcast called Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self. I'm proud to say I was one of those people that was interviewed.
Yes, you were.
Fairly recently. That was a lot of fun.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
You had to stop me. I was laughing. I was watching it. You had to stop me at the end. I was like, okay, time to go. So
there's a lot of guests who have a lot of a message to share with the world, and I love that I get to bring people onto my platform that I've developed over. We've done 35 episodes now, interviewed over 160 different people, and get to put the spotlight on you, Tim, and other amazing people to help get their message out to the world, help people express their soul, and really channel that universe between our ears, our heart, our message, why we're here, and really make a difference.
Cool.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to get it all out in an hour. You know?
Right? I need more time.
So, it goes by so fast.
It does.
Man. But I don't know how you do, because you're doing 4 hours on your own, right?
Yeah.
2 hours front and 2 hours back.
I usually do 3 at the bare minimum. Sometimes I'll jump in for an interview slot on my own. But yeah, the first hour, the second hour of the day. The first hour is like we actually just changed it, so it's more of like a group coaching, facilitating a Zoom video coaching for anybody listening to this replay. Feel free to join us on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. between 9 and 10 a.m. It's like an intention setting of I facilitate getting people grounded, getting you clear on your vision and your goals, and having you get into action in that hour. I say, hey, what do you need to do right now? What can you do right now in the next 5 minutes? Is it schedule something in your calendar? Is it have a conversation? Is it write something down? Is it put up a sticky note to remind you about something? What is it that's going to take you a step in the right direction? Because I'm all about what can we do right now? What's the single step that we can take right now? Not the giant quantum leap that's going to take you from $0 a day to $1 million a month. But
because that's the stuff you start looking at. Oh, I got to do all of this stuff, and you don't do anything, right?
Overwhelm, paralysis, stuck.
One step in front of the other, and that's it's one thing at a time.
Yeah,
cool. So we're going to make sure to give everybody all your contact information. When we wrap up, and I'll include all of the whatever web addresses you want me to include in our show notes and stuff. So anybody listening or watching will definitely have plenty of information to chase Chris down afterwards.
And become your greatest possible self.
That's right. What was the Avila Miller? Is that her name?
Avital, yeah.
Avital Miller.
Yeah.
And the thing that she had was like, show me the message or something.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, something about message. Yeah, show me the message. That was awesome.
I was laughing at that. So, all right, man. So let's give people, before we get, into down different alleyways and stuff, let's give people a little bit of your background and how the hell did you come to be Chris Burns as we know and love today and come to be sitting here. So.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I think for everyone listening, learn how to master your story. when you can master your story, when you can create meaning that moves you forward with your story, whenever you share it, that propels you forward, that inspires the people around you to dream bigger, expand, that's such a difference maker. So practice it, get better at it. I'm totally still practicing it. I'm totally still developing who I am. And what I can share with you right now is I started off very introverted and shy. And my parents used to say that whenever I was afraid of people or didn't want to talk to people, I would go like this and say, no, right? As a kid growing up. And like, I would make people disappear. You
did that up until you were 12, right?
Right. 21, something like that. But seriously, like I would have people not exist by shutting them out. And that actually became one of my superpowers in more ways than one. I became good at disconnecting from people. I became good at numbing myself from the people around me who love me, like my parents. I'd gone through school, got not almost straight A's, got really, really good grades. My parents, cracked the whip to make sure that me and my sister had good work ethic. Thank God. Mm-hmm. We have good values. I had a great foundation. And in spite of all that, I loved video games and used that as a release, as a place to have my worthiness, my value. I would play video games and I would grow these characters up to be incredibly powerful, because deep inside I had this feeling that I was inadequate. I was not enough. I was small and insignificant. My dad's like this 6'1", 6'2". I don't know how tall he is, but he's like tall, and I'm 5'9". And growing up, I saw him as this big, powerful dude. Right. And I never felt like I was as strong or as masculine or whatever as him. And I just felt like I was really small and weak and powerless. But I was able to get out my control, my dominance, my male kind of masculinity in these games and be like, yes, I got the most powerful character ever, right? And that's where I got my sense of fulfillment. And whenever my parents would take me away from that to go on vacations, to go to school, to play sports, whatever, to hang out with friends, I resented them because they were taking me from the one thing that I felt I liked and gave me fulfillment. That was my passion. That was my soul. I felt like my soul was there.
Well, you were somebody there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I kept playing video games and resenting my parents more and more. And I started going to parties with people, started going to raves and music festivals, stuff like that, to really like unleash, right? Because I had this deep feeling of inadequacy, and I had to bottle everything up. I had to keep shame in. I wasn't able to really communicate this stuff with my parents. And how many of you out there listening can feel the same? You don't really have this effective outlet. You don't have a committed listener, someone who's just going to completely be there. And however you are, however weird you think you are, however strange or different or bad or wrong or ashamed or guilty, like that person accepts you and embraces you. How many of you listening really have those people in your life? I didn't growing up. My parents, they loved the heck out of me, but they did not know how to communicate with me in a way that drew out my pain. So I felt safe and secure and able to share that with them. I didn't feel like I had that. And so I kept it all bottled up, tried to repress it years and years and years. And I found that when I went to raves and musical festivals, I can actually unleash and like dance my face off and, like just have a lot of fun and really be self-expressed. But along that journey, the typical type of people that you're surrounded by, not the greatest. There's a lot of people who are, doing drugs, lots of people who are getting into trouble, just not so in integrity with being our greatest possible selves. And I had gotten 2 charges of public intoxication. One didn't go on my record. I spent the night in jail twice for public intoxication. One was a misdemeanor. One didn't even go on my record. And then the second time that really, the third thing that really, the straw that broke the camel's back is I was at a rave, and basically the next thing I knew, I was in a really dark and scary place, and made some stupid decisions. I was young, just didn't know what the heck I was doing to my future, to my life. And, I was in jail for 2 nights because of that, 2 days. And I had to call my mom while I was there. And when I did that, my heart broke open, dude. It shattered into a million pieces. I felt like the biggest disappointment on the face of the planet. I felt like just a waste of space because of all the love and stuff that my parents had given me, like all that they had done to set me up to live a amazing life. And in that moment where I had my heart ripped apart, I discovered a couple different things. One, I really felt what love means, what love is, because I had been denying that my parents actually loved me. I had been denying that I actually knew what love was up to that point. I had become atheist. I said, there is no God. I don't want to believe in God. My parents believed in God, and I felt like anything I could do to distance myself from them and rebel against them, I'm doing it. And so I stopped believing God, stopped believing in some kind of higher power. I knew everything, right? So that whole thing was going on. But when I called my mom and my family and told them that I was in jail, luckily, again, the charges were dropped, case was dismissed, nothing bad ever happened with this. But while I was there, I just really learned that my mom and my dad and especially those two, my mom the most for sure, no matter what I did, no matter what I said, no matter how bad I messed up, she would still love me. Mm-hmm. And, I was like, wow, you still have my back. You still care for me. You still love me even after I did this stupid stuff, even after I think I don't deserve anything that you're giving me. And you still have these feelings towards me. Wow. This must be something I've overlooked. I clearly stepped over this. I clearly missed the boat on this thing called love. And I'm going to reevaluate this thing. I'm going to start reevaluating it. So that was one thing. I really felt the love for my mom.
And how old were you when you had this epiphany?
I was 21. Okay. 21. Yeah. So I definitely had gone through some college. I was going through some party years, but it's not that long ago. Yes, I was young. I was stupid, but it's still recent enough that I'm like, dude, stay on the right track. Watch the actions, the perspective of the world. That's really what creates your reality. So the second lesson is that in that moment, while I was still in jail and going back to my bunk after I'd called my mom, I'm like, all right, what am I going to do to make sure that this never happens again? That I never have to feel this pain, this suffering, this disconnection, this numbness, this feeling like my life is worthless. What am I going to do to make sure I never feel this again? And so I started writing down, for everyone listening, start writing down what you're committed to. Start writing down your vision. Start writing down what you will not tolerate anymore. I was unwilling to tolerate making poor choices. I was unwilling to tolerate living a life full of pain and suffering. I said no more. And I made a decision that day that I was going to change the trajectory of my life forever. And that's just simply a decision. I didn't set out to become a world-changing global influencer in that moment. I said, how am I going to make sure that this never happens to me again? And I started getting myself back onto this path of empowerment and loving myself and making sure that others didn't have to experience this pain either.
Okay, so the thing that's resonating with me right now is I want to ask. This is pretty powerful insight for a guy who's 21.
Yeah.
All right. So what was the source material that made this possible to come up and out of you?
That's a great question.
Because that's we don't stumble into this stuff, right? Nope. We have to get some input that plants a seed of some kind in there, here and there, and that kind of stuff. So, where did this come from?
That's such a great question, man. This is something I just recently discovered within the last couple months. I had joined a network marketing company a year earlier before this incident. And I started learning about Jim Rohn. I started learning about Les Brown. And I started learning about Darren Hardy's The Compound Effect. And these three things made such a huge difference for me to start analyzing my actions, start practicing more gratitude, and really focus on who I'm being to create my results. How am I showing up in the world? So I had been practicing goal setting. I had been practicing leadership. Before that, I was so entrepreneur, so employee minded. So it's not my responsibility. If it is to be, it's up to them. And so I did this for a year. And because of that work that I had done, learning, educating myself, investing money into products, into my team, into growing myself, because I had already started taking those actions, I knew that there was something that I could do to transmute this negative life event that most people, they might label themselves as a criminal or a screw up or whatever it might be. I chose not to have that identity as much as possible. I'm sure there was definitely an impact because I had wound up in that place, right? I wound up in this place that I don't feel like my identity is in alignment with. Because I'm this guy who's getting good grades in school. I'm an engineer. I had my electrical engineering degree at the time, and I'm like, this isn't me. I'm not supposed to be here. I don't belong here. But the fact was, I was there. So there was some part of me being there, the circumstances that rubbed off on my way of being, on my worthiness, on my identity. And I've definitely spent the last couple of years releasing that shame and that guilt, processing it, learning how to share this life event with people in a way that empowers me and lifts me up, because I'm clearly no longer the person who made the decisions to wind up in that place. I'm clearly not that person because of who I say I am, number one, and two is all the actions that I'm taking, right? I'm like putting people in the freaking spotlight to get their message out to the world. The person who I was selfish, disconnected, numb, and egotistical, and thought I knew everything. That's what wound me up in that place. Right. And I was invincible, right? Like nothing's ever going to hurt me. So that's why I wound up there. The person who I am today over the last, I think it's been 5 years, has really been the person who shows up and makes a difference for other people.
Cool.
Yeah.
Something that you touched on that's a big issue for me. A couple of things, but the last one is labels. They do so much damage. I mean, we have to label things. We have to be able to identify things in a way that everybody understands. When you use a word, they understand what you're talking about. Yeah. And that's a label.
And words have power. Words create.
Yeah. But okay, I'm not going to go down that one, but because we can never stay on track, But the downside to some labels, in particular labels that are applied to human beings, I suppose is where I really want to go with this, is that, we start to identify ourselves as what the label is, right? Oh, I'm an alcoholic.
Yep.
And you're forever an alcoholic.
Man.
What? No, it's a problem that you had.
Yes.
Right. And it may be a problem that you can't afford to go and tease.
Yeah.
Don't poke that bear.
Right.
But it doesn't define who you are.
And even more specifically, there's facts. There's facts that exist in your reality. The fact is you drink 2 times a day. The fact is you drink 5 times a week, whatever, right? There's a fact there. And you made that fact, whatever, someone who's out there using labels. We make facts mean things because we're on this interview together, Tim and I. We might make that mean. The fact is we're on an interview. We might make it mean that we're up to big things in the world. We might make it mean that we're extroverted or connected, well-connected. We might make it mean that we are inspirational. We can make it mean all kinds of different things because our brain does that. It categorizes, it labels. And
that's what
it's
for.
Very useful thing in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
When we use it, not when it uses us.
Right. Yeah. We're there's a lot of similarities. Yeah. Or I feel, at least, in our stories. I can relate to a lot of different things that you said. I was, in fact, I think I talked about this on your show, and the only place is when I was about 6 years old, I was hospitalized for an ulcer. Yeah. And it was just, holding stuff in. I didn't know how to let it out. And so I relate to that. and the feeling of I don't know that I ever felt that I couldn't express things too. I didn't have I never knew my father. I had a stepfather for a while, but there was no connection there.
Mm-hmm.
So basically I had one parent, my mother, and I don't know that I probably would have felt like I could tell her whatever I needed to get out, but there was something that just would not let me get it out. And then I feel bad, but I remember her just basically I tortured her just trying to, you know, I'd just be crying and she's sitting there, come on, what's wrong? You know? So yeah, I identify with that. Not that I didn't, like I said, not that I didn't have anybody that I could talk to, but I couldn't talk to anybody,
right.
You know, and it's a similar thing. And I made my mistakes too, you know. And there was something else that you said before, other than, well, we'll come back to it. It'll come up, I guess. So you had this revelation. Mm-hmm. You started thinking in far more intentional ways about how you're going to live your life. Yep. You started writing it out, mm-hmm. Right? So how much early on, what do you remember? I mean, it seems like it hasn't been that long for you. I'd have trouble going back that far. Mm-hmm. But so what were like early sort of decisions about this is what I'm going to do with my life, not mm-hmm. just I don't want to do this anymore, I'm not going to allow that anymore. Right. You know, what were some of the early things that you decided this is what I'm going to be, this is what I'm going to do? Yeah.
So some decisions I made in the very beginning were to get back onto the right track. And, you know, I for about 3 years, nothing happened with the case, right? With this case. And I was concerned of whether or not I would go to trial or whatever it might be. Like I said, case was dropped, charges dismissed. But because I was so concerned with getting back onto the right track, I started doing more things that a good citizen, a good Samaritan would do. I started going and volunteering on weekends to hand out food to the homeless and the needy people at a local high school. And every other weekend I'd do that. And that started really taking the focus off me, the spotlight off myself. So again, for everyone out there listening, if you want to stop suffering, if you want to break through your problems and your challenges, start putting the spotlight, take it off yourself and put it on other people. Because when it's on ourselves, we tend to judge and assess and make things mean stuff about us. But if we're out there being of service and helping other people, the spotlight is not going to be on us. It's on them, and how grateful we are to be of service. It makes us feel good. We might be grateful for how much we do have and, you know, how little some other people have. It really puts things into perspective. So that was so powerful for me. But the second thing that really catapulted me forward was joining Toastmasters. Mm-hmm. For everyone listening, Toastmasters is a speech and leadership club, and you can have roles in the club to help organize and be a bigger leader. You can give feedback for other people's speeches. You can do impromptu speaking. You speak on whatever topic you want, really. And I started practicing my speaking and leadership abilities. And I became the president of the club within about a year and a half. And I was running a club of, I think we had on average about 25 people per meeting, you know, business people, and we had like 40, 45 people in the club. So it was a great Toastmasters club. It was every single Sunday. So it was like really people who were committed, 2 hours long, you know, it's like hardcore. And I was one of those people who I wanted to grow as quickly as possible. I missed no meetings the first year of joining. I was like, dude, I'm here every single week. This is my dojo. This is where I grow. This is where I expand. And so I started doing that. And after about a year, I started getting a little, I took on more and more leadership positions, but I started getting a little impatient. And that's something that has definitely challenged me in my life. And luckily, along this time, I found out about a 3-day seminar called the Millionaire Mind Intensive, put on by T. Harv Eker. It used to be Peak Potentials, and now they're Success Resources of America. So I went to this 3-day seminar. Up to that point, I hadn't really been to any seminars outside of the network marketing company that I had joined. Mm-hmm. There was I went to 3 events with them, but it was all in-house branded with them. And so I started meeting new people. I went to this 3-day seminar, invested into their back-end package, started going to other more higher level seminars and events. And that's really where the gold is at for everyone out there listening. Invest. When you invest into these high level programs, and obviously make sure it's a good fit for you, like use your common sense, use your heart, use your wisdom to know, ask your soul, ask your higher guidance. And I started investing in these programs and getting around more committed people. The people who invest in these things, they're more committed than the people who come to a free 3-day event.
Yep.
And I want to be around committed people. I want to be around people who go the extra mile, who are willing to put their money where their mouth is, so to speak. So I started hanging out with more of those people. And so that's a commitment and a decision that I made to myself, is surround myself with more amazing people. Toastmasters is like cool, but it's kind of like small fish, small pond kind of thing. And don't get me wrong, there's some epic world-class speakers in Toastmasters. That's totally, shout out to Toastmasters, because it's amazing. And you never know what you're going to find in each of these clubs. There's like thousands, tens of thousands of clubs all around the world. But I knew I wanted something bigger. I want to make a bigger impact. I want to learn how to make more money, because up until that point, I'm like struggling with money. How do I make more money? How do I add value to people's lives? And I also hired my first coach from Toastmasters. So I'm grateful for Lee Adams, and he's passed away now, due to cancer. But, he really gave me that foundation of love and gratitude and being of service. So fast forward, about 3 years ago, I started my coaching company, Burn It Up Coaching. And since then, it's been a real journey of figuring out how to convey my message. I talked about this at the very beginning of this interview, is if you don't know how to portray your story in a way that pushes you forward, that accelerates you, that has you show up in a way that you inspire yourself, your why pulls you forward. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be willing to take the actions. You're not going to be willing to jump on a Facebook Live for 12 hours straight and interview all these people. But because I became grounded in who I am and solid in my soul of the fact that I awaken people to their power, to the power within them, that's who I am. I ignite leadership, bold, conscious, loving leadership. Like that's who I am. That's how I show up in the world. Because I became clear on that, of course I'm going to take the actions that are correlate to that identity. And that's really, we were talking about labels. Identity is so huge. If you know yourself as someone who as an identity who's unstoppable, who's courageous, who's loving, you're going to be a super powerful magnet towards awesome things manifesting in your life. But if you know yourself, have an identity of you're a screw up, you don't do anything right, you're lazy, you watch TV, you bail on your friends, you don't have integrity, then that's what's going to show up in your life. So start working on your identity. And a quick exercise to do this, simple, is who am I really, right? Right at the top of a page, who am I really? And just start filtering or start data dumping onto a paper. Who am I really? Who I am is da-da-da-da-da-da. Who I am is da-da-da-da-da. Try to fill up like 2-3 pages of that stuff. Challenge yourself. Push yourself to dig it out and see what comes out. And you might notice that who you say you are is all these positive, inspirational things. Awesome. Good. That's great. It's a great place to start. What you also might see is that there's all these negative, disempowering things and things that you don't like about yourself. Awesome. It's a great place to start. Either way, it's perfect. Where you are is perfect. So here's the thing.
Well, I think
Yeah.
Go ahead and finish the thought, because I want to make a comment on that.
Cool. So if you start with the positive, you're like super positive, good. Now get into the negative, write down what you don't like about yourself, what doesn't work, because life is not all sunshine and rainbows. We have to embrace the shadow, embrace the negative parts of ourselves. So get that out. And if you wrote only negative stuff, start writing some positive stuff as well, so that you can remember how powerful you actually are as a human being. And then once you do that, you've balanced it out, then take the negatives and cross them out. Who I am is a jerk. Cross it out. Okay, let it go. Like you can even imagine like letting it go. Like you take your hand and like pull the thought out of your head and like throw it away, throw it outside, throw it out of the window, and then write the replacement of it. Who I am is a jerk. Okay, cross it out. Nope, that's not me. Who I am is generous. Who I am is compassionate. Who I am is loving. Who I am is awesome, and everyone loves to be around me. And simply go through this process and start being aware of the programs and the thoughts that are running in the space between your ears, the universe between your ears.
Yeah. Well, you kind of answered the question I was going to get into.
Hi, this is Tim Starr. Thanks for joining me and Gabi on the universe between your ears. We really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us for a little while. And we'd like to see you again. So be sure to subscribe wherever it is you're consuming the podcast from, whether it's YouTube or Stitcher or iTunes or whatever the hell else is out there. We want to see you again. We also want to hear from you. So let us know what you think of each episode. Let us know if you got an idea for a future episode that you think would be just killer. Absolutely, let us know. All right? Thanks again, and we will see you next time around. Bye-bye.